Tastemaker people, we just got done talking with Louisa about her module and her with the curriculum and what she's going to be presenting at the Tastemaker Summit, SEO Summit. Louisa is going to be talking to us about keywords, intent, and topic ideation specifically for food bloggers. We're super excited. We talked about creating some step-by-step instructions. We talked about creating processes and procedures for everything from identifying keyword intent, identifying topics, competitive analysis, topic clusters, everything. We're also going to talk about AI. She's brilliant. She's one of my most favorite people. I've spoken at the same conferences with her, but I really want you to hear from her. Louisa, tell us how you started in SEO. I want that story.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be chatting with you today. So my start in SEO was very serendipitous. I actually, right after I graduated from undergrad, I had my degree in journalism. I'm a Southern California girl. I went back to LA. I did retail for a year. Not everybody lands their dream job right out of school. I did women's shoes, got customer service experience, and then I didn't study digital marketing when I was in undergrad, but I did keep up on LinkedIn. A LinkedIn recruiter found me and got me connected with a firm called Internet Brands, based out of El Segundo in LA. And that was actually the first place where I heard the phrase SEO. And I remember my first take on it was that, hey, I think this has something to do with keywords, and I'm an English nerd. Maybe I can make this work. And so I did a little bit of SEO work at Internet Brands as an account manager, but the true blossoming of my SEO career was at an agency called W Promote that was, oddly enough, right across the street. And when I got in there as first an account specialist and then as an account manager, that was really just an incredible place to build my foundation in SEO, both on the technical side and on the creative content side. We had, brands as big as Toyota that were clients at that company, and all the way down to, maybe a fashion line that was just getting off the ground. So it really gave me amazing experience in no matter what you're working with. It could be a tiny website or a giant website. The foundation and the best practices should really be the same. So I was there, and that was incredible from an agency perspective to get my start. But then I always wanted to get back to news. My, degree was in journalism, and my fairy godmother moment was when a recruiter reached out to me to work at E-Online. I am a huge
Wow.
Yes. So it truly felt like if you don't take this opportunity, you're going to kick yourself. And it was a big leap of faith. It was a contract role from, being in a very, warm and comfortable agency environment. But I took the leap, and that really transferred, my career in a whole new direction. I was at E-Entertainment, and that was where I learned, basically that your foundation for SEO is the same, but the timetable was totally flipped on its head because news changes like this. It literally is every 5 seconds. There will be a new piece of content that you need to be pushing out. But, I learned it quick and dirty and then got into a lot of different roles at a variety of publishers. I went to Yahoo, the OG search engine next, which was invaluable experience. Some of the smartest minds I've ever been in contact were there, and it was really cool just to learn SEO at a place that, was a pioneer in our industry. Right. And then after that, I went to TMZ, which is, a very unique place to work. I always tip my hat to them, though, for their approach to breaking news. They do that very well, and it really sets them apart in the business of publishing. I also then went to People Magazine and Entertainment Weekly, first in New York, and I uprooted my whole life, was out there for a year. Then I moved back to Los Angeles with that same job. That was incredible. Again, just loving entertainment and, all things award shows, celebrity breakups, marriages, everything. I loved being at those places and learning the ins and outs of that. And then after that, being a Southern California girl, I went to the LA Times, and that was truly one of the proudest moments of my career. I grew up in San Diego. The San Diego Union Tribune was my paper, which is, the sister paper to the LA Times. So the fact that I was able to then work for, that bigger entity and really build, an SEO SEO strategy for them from the ground up was just an incredible accomplishment and a privilege. So love being there. That was during the pandemic, though. Those were 2.5 very eventful pandemic years. And there's never a dull moment in California, but in particular during that period, we had the pandemic, but we had wildfires, we had a recall election, we had Trump in office just in general. So it was a lot, to maneuver, but it definitely expanded my skill set. And then after that, I probably, one of the biggest jumps, I went to the mothership. I was at Google, and throughout
move.
Yes, definitely a big move. Throughout my career, Google Trends, starting from my agency days, has really been an invaluable tool in my arsenal. I have really taken pride in teaching the ins and outs of Google Trends to every newsroom that I've been in. I think it's incredibly user-friendly, and I am a big believer that when Google puts, out a tool, it's worth your time. And I've loved the insights that it's been able to bring to my work. So I was on that team, and that was an incredible experience. And then that led me to where I am now, which is ESPN, where I am SEO Director. And it had always been a long time goal to, lead my own SEO team and, be able to build kind of a strategy from the ground up. And I'm incredibly, proud to work with 2 very talented analysts on my team that I oversee and, help to, bring ESPN to even more, eyeballs than it hits right now, which is awesome. And, sports are inherently fun. It's a really, awesome type of content to work with on an ongoing basis. And I'm thrilled to see, where things go next. But for the time being, very excited to take part in the Tastemaker conference. I am a foodie on the side. So even though I've worked in news, I am constantly thinking about where my next meal is. And because of that, I've learned how to Google exceptionally well around food and find all the best types of content. And in particular, some of the tools, that I love to use, like Google Trends, can be very helpful in constructing an effective, search strategy for food. So this will be fun to get outside of my usual editorial box and help, some recipe bloggers make the best content possible. I can't wait.
I love it. I love it. You are amazing. Tell me quickly, the biggest difference from and you were doing SEO before the pandemic happened, and you were with LA Times through the pandemic. Tell me how different the behavior of the algorithm and the search results from your perspective. Like how much did the algorithm mature through that time? And because we saw differences in how people search and the behavior of the user, right? Content need to be surfaced much quicker during the pandemic. How did you adjust at LA Times to these changes?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. So, just as an SEO and specifically working in news SEO, because our content shifts so quickly, it really is important to be picking up on any types of patterns that you can and making those little tweaks to your strategy on an ongoing basis. Because we, have such like a short timetable for success, especially
Right.
compared to like more traditional SEO. So
Right.
we're always trying to take notice of any sort of changes that we're seeing in the SERPs and like what's going on. And if there is a bigger sort of shift happening, how should we adjust our own approach to kind of, adapt to that? And one thing that I will point out that we were noticing a lot at the LA Times, and I think it would apply to recipe bloggers just because I think it's a bigger lesson in SEO, is that, over time, and I think this is still true now, Google has become more and more greedy about its knowledge graphs. And in particular, in the world of news SEO, where you are fighting for your top stories carousel, and you're like, let me have my top stories carousel. That's where publishers can be featured. That's where we can get our content out there. Something that we really picked up on at the LA Times was that, especially on big event nights, right? Like an award show, for instance, we would really want to have our top stories carousel be towards the top. That's where people are going to click in to our content. But we would notice more and more that you would see that Google Knowledge Graph instead up at the top, where it would be like their version of a winners list versus your article that is a winners list, which would appear quite a bit further down the page. And that was tricky for us because, you know, I think like what we found out over time was that we had to kind of switch up our strategy and be like, okay, how much of an investment do we want to make in these bigger tentpole pieces when we know that Google is taking more and more of that pie anyways, and it's kind of out of our hands, versus do we want to spend more time on more like unique breakout angles that Google wouldn't be featuring in their like giant knowledge graph that might set us apart a little bit more when somebody, for a user that might be looking for something a little bit more unique, they're not just looking for the winners list. So I know that was one conversation that we definitely had at the times, just with how the SERPs were changing. We were noticing that more and more of that value, and this has really just continued in different ways, you know, over the last few years, just seeing that they want more and more of that valuable shelf space for themselves. Most recently, I would point out that the conversation that's been going on a lot with publishers now is with the search generative experience that Google has been, you know, testing out, because now, you know, Google is having its wonderful drop down with its best summary of whatever you're searching for. I felt right away when they made the announcement around the search generative experience that this would factor into news somehow. I knew it wouldn't be for every single topic, but I had a feeling that for certain types of queries, it would apply. And then once I started testing it out and I saw that like, okay, so it is grabbing onto that and I see the summary that it provides. Unfortunately, you know, that little publisher carousel that it provides is quite small right now over to the right. And I know that has been, you know, an issue that multiple, you know, news SEOs have brought up, and I agree with it. And I think that's our like current version of this concern is, you know, if they do continue to roll out SGE, you know, more extensively, are we going to make sure that, you know, number one, that summary that they're taking up a lot of the shelf space with is as accurate as possible, as accurate as it needs to be, is as well sourced as it needs to be. And then also, you know, are you giving that like proper, you know, kind of backup, you know, resource on the side through that carousel. But I would say that that's always been one of our biggest jobs in news SEO, is just paying attention to those types of patterns. And right now that's a little bit of, you know, our black box that we're dealing with as they continue to, you know, test out SGE. And I mean, they clearly are working through a lot of kinks. But, you know, I think we're curious to see where that will continue to go. So that would just be one example that I would bring up.
Awesome. I love that. And the reason I ask that is because this is what the recipe bloggers and the food bloggers are dealing with right now. The constantly changing SERP, introduction of generative search. I love it all. Louisa, look forward to having you at Tastemaker SEO Summit in Brooklyn. You are amazing. Always pleasure to talk to. That's it.
I can't wait to be there. Thank you so much.